September 9th, 10 a.m. in the morning. It is a Wednesday. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. Hope everyone had a good Labor Day weekend. So we got our another guest here. Well, same one. We got Alan back in for another podcast today. I'm actually going to let my dad and Alan talk. I'm actually going to step out on this podcast and let Dad run it. So everyone enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful hump day. Another one here in September. Okay, today we have back with us, we have Alan back with us. He was on two previous podcasts. He was the gentleman who did an internship at NTV. And everybody went, wow, MTV. Yeah, really. Back in the day. I'm not talking about yesterday. I'm talking about way back when it...
25 years ago.
25. Wow, that long. And so he did get to meet some of the people that came through there, which, I'm sure that was very interesting. One that is still on the air today, who was there at the time, and I just love her to death. I think she is such a hoot, and that is Kennedy. She is just, I know she seemed to be a real sweetheart, a really fun person. She works for another agency now. She's no longer with MTV. Well, I'll go ahead and shout out. She's on Fox at times, and she's a commentator, and she does some of the same silly stuff she did MTV, and it's just hilarious. I don't know, you've never seen any of that with her on.
Well, when she would do her show, she would cut up on the show and everything. But when she was interviewing guests, though, she was all business and everything. But when she wasn't, or when she was doing her show, or when she was just hanging out, she was just a riot. So.
Well, I can imagine, because that's what she does on her show. She has these little excerpts, 5 different things that she'll talk about, and she just, not so much make fun, she just cuts up. She's a real cut up, no doubt about that. I wish we had more people like that on TV and whatever. You said you wanted to talk about your book today. It's a little bit different from our regular format, but it's a nerd thing. Nerds write books.
Well, if we could, I would like to give a couple kudos to some people.
Oh, you want to do some shout-outs? Go for it.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to give kudos to Janet Hall and Scott Richards from WBRC Channel 6 here in Birmingham. I worked with them at the station in the 80s, and I worked in pre-production for the newscasts, and I ran the teleprompter, and it was a lot of fun. And we had to put telephone books on Scott Richards' chair because he was so short that the camera wouldn't go that low. Nobody knows that.
They do now. Of course, cameras have changed a little bit since then. Now you can maneuver and hold them in your hand compared to them monster behemoths that you had then.
Right. And then again, I want to give kudos. Remember in one of the other podcasts, I had met David Coverdale at MTV, and I got his autograph and everything. But when I left MTV, unfortunately, the autograph was destroyed in an apartment fire. Now, you remember me telling you about the apartment fire.
Yes, fortunately, you were not part of the fire. He might not be here today.
But anyway, though, I still keep the dream alive. Dave, if you're out there listening to this, I still have your album Burn from Deep Purple in my car at all times.
Well, that's real interesting right there. One thing about if you are in broadcast, you do run across and meet these people, or if you're in the industry. I got a couple. A shout out I'm going to do a little bit later for one of mine and my son's friends, who is now able to full-time go into, well, he went into acting. He's a member of SAG now. But with that said, go back to something that you just mentioned earlier, and that's with WBRC Channel 6 in Birmingham, which is the second commercial TV station in Birmingham. Let's see, I was trying to remember. That's what I was looking up earlier. At the time, when it originated, it was an NBC station. Then it switched in the 60s with it and the ABC station. And it turned into the ABC station in the early 60s. And then here, not too many years ago, when Fox came out with their own TV network, it went on board as a Fox station. Of course, ABC is still here, but it's underneath another channel. Let's see, WRC. Oh, here's the one for everybody. In 1922, first public broadcast station that came online in Alabama. That was WAPI. And it's 98 years old this year. In 2 more years, they'll be celebrating their 100th anniversary of broadcasting. Can you believe it, folks? 100 years in broadcasting.
That's a good little clip out of history right there.
Yeah. Just a little interesting little tidbit. You may or may not have learned that while you were studying up. And the second radio station to come online was WBRC, which of course WBRC
was the TV station. WERC was the radio station.
The original broadcast letters were WBRC.
Okay.
And the FCC made them change it back in sometime in the 70s. You could not have a radio station and a TV station
With the same call letter.
with the same call letters.
Yeah.
They made them change the call letters.
Right.
And they came on board a couple of years after. I want to say it was either 23 or 24, so they're nearly 100 years old. And the next one to come on board after that was WSGN, which I've talked about more than once to you. It's set up downtown Birmingham at a hotel of all places. It was running a whole 10 watts, which is not very much power. It just about maybe covered the city at that time, in the early 1920s, but today that might go down a block. It wouldn't go too far because of all the other stuff in the air that would interfere with it. Of course, you'd know more about that than I would. How far would a 10-watt station go today?
It depends if it's AM or FM.
AM.
AM station would probably cover maybe 50 miles, probably 60 miles.
A straight line. Of course, you have to remember this station was set up in the middle of Birmingham, which is in a bowl, so I don't guess it would go quite that far.
But an FM station, it won't carry as far as an AM because AM tends to bounce off the clouds.
Right.
And it'll travel further. An AM signal, well, like an FM, if it was 10 watts, it'd probably carry maybe
Down the street.
30 miles, probably.
30 miles.
Yeah.
We have come a long ways, folks, now with the internet. You can talk from like right here and reach around the world.
Yeah.
No problem at all. Of course, satellites have a lot to do with that.
Right. Another thing that I don't think I failed to mention when I talk about getting David Coverdale's autograph, that's when I was an intern at MTV. Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Make that clear.
Of when that happened. So that's been like 25 years ago. So.
Right.
Wish it hadn't got destroyed. It's too bad it got destroyed.
Well,
the autograph got destroyed and everything.
Well, like I said, you were not part of that destruction. That's the main thing. What we're covering today a little bit is some people say, well, it's not instant. No, but it is nerd, and that you're dealing with actual stuff dealing with. And communications, whether it be written, spoken, or over the broadcast waves, it's still communication, or on the TV screen, or listen to the radio, or go to the movies. It's all rolled together, if you think about it.
It's part of the same animal.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that is anybody in radio and TV, they had to have some kind of broadcast degree or something like that. Some of them, like Casey Kasem and people like that, they got lucky because somebody heard their voice and they said, "Oh my, we've got to put him on the air." But a lot of people had to go to broadcast school. I had to go to broadcast school.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to get the first class radio telephone license.
Yeah, you can do it all.
Yeah. It's an engineering license.
Oh, I understand that.
So, but I studied to how to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's just not what a class not a 1, 2, and a 3 broadcast.
No, there's just a first class radio telephone license, and
Right.
and there's another one called a permit where
Right.
you can just do it to be a DJ.
Right.
But I took it a step further to get the actual
Right.
engineering thing where I can work on transmitters and stuff. So
That's what I was talking about. Was just the step, just to do a specific thing, like you say, DJ. Yeah, you're right. Casey Kasem. I wish he was still here. He had a great show back in the day. Another one that a lot of people will probably, especially if you're over 35 years of age, that's Wolfman Jack. That was another one that got picked
see,
up.
they just kind of fell into it and got lucky, and somebody heard their voice and said, we need to put him on the air.
Right. Which they did.
And see, what was another one? The guy that did New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Oh, Dick Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he started off in radio as a kid. He was one of those. He literally worked his way up. Of course, he was a workaholic, and bless his heart, and that didn't help matters any either. And I think he was a bad cigarette smoker. I
think back in the day we were all bad cigarette smokers.
Yeah. Well, that's fortunately that's something I never did.
I just had a doctor's appointment this morning, and then I haven't had a cigarette since '95. So I gave them up when I was at MTV.
Yeah. Well, your lungs probably cleared up and they're pink again, like when you were first born.
Right.
So you think about it, people. That's something you might want to put down because it's hard on the lungs and the rest of the human body. What was that other point I was going to bring out? Oh, what the call letters for those 3 radio stations stand for. WSGN is very interesting.
Well, now I have heard before that some radio stations, their call letters were like their girlfriend's initials and things like that. But would you digress into what you were going to speak just now?
No, you're right about that. WSGN was owned by the Birmingham News, which interesting. Why would a newspaper own a radio station?
But that happens. I mean, that happens a lot, though.
Oh, sure.
All the time. A newspaper own a radio station. Sure, why not?
Well, hey, that's more revenue and out there.
There is also a law that says you can't have more than a certain amount of radio stations. Right, they called it a monopoly after that.
Well, same thing with TV.
Yeah, same difference.
Same difference on that. It has to be owned by a different entity. But WSGN, SGN stood for the South's Greatest Newspaper.
Okay.
That's what I was talking about. Somebody that worked for Birmingham News, and he would have known. Okay, WBRC. BRC stood for Birmingham Radio Corporation.
Okie dokie.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Birmingham station. WAPI, that's a little more involved. A lot of people wonder, well, where was the first station at? I asked, and it should have occurred to me when I figured out what WAPI stood for. The first station was in Auburn, Alabama. People say, why Auburn, Alabama? What's down there? Well, engineers, for one thing, they do teach it down there. I know they call it cow cottage. Well, they have agriculture also.
Well, I think there's Isn't there a TV station down there that's run out of Auburn? Isn't there a TV
Yes.
station down there?
Yes, it's run by the school.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
school
what I thought.
station. And that's what WAPI was originally, a school station. And the API stands for Alabama Polytechnical Institute. That
yeah.
was the first and original name of Auburn.
Correct.
I just thought that, just real interesting. That's just a little nerd thing, I bet you don't know what so-and-so stands for. And I bet you don't know how old it is either. All that's nerd stuff, you think about it, people. Because how many times do you go out and ask such and such actor, or or in a comic book, when did this character first show up? Or what comic book? Blah this, blah that. And that's real big in the comic book industry. If you have a comic book where a particular group or character was introduced in one comic book, and then they had their own comic book maybe a year or two later. I was fortunate enough to get one of those. For those of you that are old enough to remember Thundercats.
Oh yes, Thundercats, most definitely. Used to love to watch that TV cartoon.
Right. It premiered in Swamp Thing, but I can't remember.
Swamp Thing.
I can't remember what number, which was back in the. When did I get that? I got it in about 74, 75, sometime along in there.
You still have it?
Oh yeah, I still have it.
Because I know you've got an extensive comic book and library of just all these things that you have in your library. I mean, it's unreal, your library.
Well, comic books are down here
Yeah.
in all these cabinets. That particular one, and then Thundercats, I don't think they came out with their comic book until, Lord, I can't remember when, off the top of my head. Sometime in the 70s. I mean, well, early 80s. Or maybe late 70s. I'm not real sure on that. But, that's just one of those little interesting things. If you look up almost anything, and people that are Marvel and DC fans, man, they're really big into that kind of thing. Where was so-and-so first introduced? Which book this? Which book that? Which universe?
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with Marvel and DC, you're going to have multiverse in there, because some of the characters, they die in one and they're resurrected in another. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I have no problem with multiverse. It only makes for richer stories. The shout out I was going to do was to a friend of mine who goes, and he wants us to call him Brother John. He was the individual I told you about who was fortunate enough, partially through his cosplay and his contacts, he was able to get into some movies. Probably one that most people would know would be Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And what was funny in that, when he was talking to us, he said, yeah, they did a big guy, a tall guy, he's 6'4". And so I got to be one of the bad guys. He said, I died 4 times. I said, well, did you get paid all 4 times? He said, no, I got paid once. I said, well, you got, I said, yeah, but they said, but because I'd already been shot and had been put in, although they made me die 4 times, then only got paid once. I said, that's kind of
So his name was Brother John. Is that his real name?
No, that's just what he goes by.
Because that Brother John is the name of one of my latest singles that I had made.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the other one is His Mercies. And unfortunately, your CD player was down, so we can't play them tonight. But
Maybe
still going to give
another
kudos to Kurt Harpel out there at Hit City Music in L.A., my producer. He's stuck with me through thick and thin. And I came prepared tonight to play the 2 singles, but oh well.
well, maybe another day we'll be able to do that. But CD have a tendency to die, the little laser.
Yeah, the laser. Yeah.
But of course, knowing where most of them are made, what can I say? We'll leave it at that.
But I think we want to talk a little bit about my book.
Yeah.
Okay, my book. Okay. Let's see. Back when I was still an intern at MTV, you heard in the other news podcast that I was engaged to a girl that was on the dance show The Grind on MTV, Danielle Lackey. Danielle, if you're out there, hope you're doing okay. I had just got done helping design some sets for The Grind, and had also just completed a book. It's called Triumph at the Black Fortress. And it's about a knight and an elf that go on a quest to avenge the knight's father's death and destroy the Black Lord of the fortress and rescue the damsel in distress. Well, I named the damsel in distress after my fiancée, Danielle. And so then there was another character in the book, Danzig the elf. Well, the rock singer Glenn Danzig got word of that and read my book, and I got to meet him because of that.
Really? That's cool.
And so then when things went sour, like we talked about in the earlier podcast, because of things that went, like I said, it went south.
Yeah, went south.
So I left there and came back home, and I became disabled and on a fixed income, and was never able to be able to afford getting the book self-published or stuff like that, because even the monthly payments were beyond my means. But I still have a copy of it hanging around. I think I have 2 copies of it. It's in my room in the house I'm living, renting a room at. But it was. Yeah, I've tried. These self-publishers. They all want money. So.
Oh yeah.
But I had the satisfaction of that. I had it all spell checked, typed in perfect form, and put on CD and everything.
Ready to go.
So it's good to go if something ever happens and stuff. So.
Well, that's something later on too. You might be able to put it out on a CD.
Mm-hmm.
A talking book that's real popular now.
Mm-hmm.
Just figure out how we can do that.
Yeah, it was real cool though. To meet Glenn Danzig. Who would think? Who would think that? But he heard about the book and he heard about the character in the book, and it was real cool and everything. So.
Well, see, that's something nerd too. He went right straight to what most people now would call fantasy, dealing with elves and such as that.
It's a neat quest that they go on. They have to get through a lot of trouble and toil to even get to where they can actually get to the Black Fortress and everything, to even defeat, and they have to go through troubles and trials in the Black Fortress to even get to the Dark Lord's chambers. So it's kind of a cool book,
Well, that's something, maybe somebody out there could help us out, just.
Yeah, I'll take any kind of help that's out there, man.
Messages, like us on Facebook at NerdsWithACause. Trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I was going to ask you how that went, but I understand that. It all revolves around money.
Yeah.
Money, honey. I was just checking my time, people. That's what you heard me doing. Moving my equipment around. One thing, when we do, when we're able to set up, we will definitely, at your request, we'll put your songs out there, see if people like them now. A lot of people may not, and some probably will. But I understand, they're Christian songs, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know, just good, clean music. Of course, I understand it's about your faith. That's no problem at all. That's something we're not afraid to talk here at NerdsWithACause. People of faith. That's one thing that we need out there right now, badly.
Well, I have, like I spoke in one of the earlier, have we got enough time?
Yeah.
I spoke on the earlier podcast, that I had actually been working with Kurt Harpel since like 2000 and had made 3 albums with him. And, but the Lord got a hold of me because, and delivered me from a cocaine addiction. And so I decided that I needed, if I was going to write again, that I needed to write for the Lord and everything. So just threw that out there.
Yeah. See, people, it can be done. You don't have to be addicted if you don't want to be, but you have to want to not be addicted. Most people have to fall on the face, get run over, rolled up hard and wet, and then thrown down again and stepped on before they decide
To
they
do
don't
something about it. And yeah.
do something about it. And
It took a lot of counseling and a lot of talks with the psychiatrist and everything. And so, but I made it and I'm here.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of my public service announcement today. Not everybody is fortunate enough to be clean, and those that are not,
If you guys are out there and you are experiencing drug problems, the Lord can help. I mean,
yeah, he can take it away from you.
Yeah, he can deliver you from it. But you've got to take the first step, and
Well, that's something too.
See, I actually even got a 2-year degree in drug and alcohol counseling. I mean, I told you about that before.
Oh yeah.
And that helped me during that time too to get me off the stuff.
Helped you understand yourself, what you were going through. Which people, you don't have to do it. And I'm gonna put this out there on NerdsWithACause. If you have a problem and you don't have anybody to talk to, you can message us and we'll message you back. Try to get back with you. And so, we can help you out, because nerds, we gotta hang together. I mean, there's more nerds out there than what people realize. Like, what is a nerd? Go look it up. And then go.
It's not what you see on Big Bang Theory.
Right. That's just a type of nerd. Oh, those people are hilarious. But with that said, people, I'm going to end it up, wrap it up today, and thank Alan for coming.
Been a pleasure. Been a good time to talk to y'all, and it's really been a pleasure.
And we have another chance we'll get back together. Like I say, this is my first podcast where I was let loose out of the box.
Let you out of the box.
Yeah, let me out of the box. See what I could do. Well, it's a little bit different. I mean, this is my nerdy thing. I get into all that kind of stuff. A friend of mine, his is genealogy. Hey, that's a nerd thing. You're doing something like that. A nerd thing is something that the quote-unquote average person doesn't do. Of course, now, how do you define average? Well, that depends on what age group you're dealing with. But that, again, that's a topic for another nerd podcast.
See, I grew up in the 70s and stuff, so I was doing all the right drugs and
oh yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. And see, it drove my parents nuts.
Oh yeah.
But I was in church and out of church. I was on both sides of the fence, and it took to I finally came to know the Lord in about about 2008, I think, is when I finally got rid of the cocaine addiction and everything.
Oh, that's great. That's super great. I've known people that have been on drugs drugs, and they didn't get off of them, and it got the best of them, and some of them, unfortunately, are 6 foot under now because of it. That's the reason why I'm very much extending my hand out there to people. And with that said, everybody, we will see you on our next podcast, and we are out.